Hurricane Catalina left Port Haven looking like a war zone. The Category 4 storm had ripped through the coastal town with 150 miles per hour winds, turning family homes into piles of splintered wood and twisted metal. For 18 hours, the 12,000 residents had huddled in shelters, listening to their world being torn apart. Emma Rodriguez stood in what used to be her family's restaurant, Rosa's Kitchen, where 4 generations had served the community. Now, seawater and debris filled the dining room, where her grandmother's recipes had fed countless families. The building's roof was gone, and her life savings were floating somewhere in the Gulf. "Mama, what are we going to do?" her teenage daughter Sophia asked, clutching their only salvaged possession, a waterlogged photo of the family. Emma had no answer. Around them, neighbors wandered through the destruction in stunned silence. The marina was littered with boats thrown inland like toys. The school was roofless. Even the fire station had been destroyed. Mayor David Chen tried to maintain composure as he surveyed his obliterated town. Federal emergency declarations were filed, but FEMA estimated it would be weeks before substantial aid arrived. Cell towers were down, roads were impassable, and the nearest functioning hospital was 200 miles away. Port Haven felt completely cut off from civilization. That night, sleeping in the high school gym that somehow survived, Emma wrote in her journal by flashlight, "We've lost everything, but we're alive. That has to be enough to start over." She had no idea how prophetic those words would become, or that help was already on its way from the highest office in the land. 3 days after the hurricane, when the first supply helicopters finally reached Port Haven, they brought more than just food and water. They brought word that President Trump was coming personally to assess the damage. The announcement spread through the refugee center like electricity through the exhausted community. Emma couldn't believe it. "Presidents don't come to places like Port Haven," she told her daughter. But Mayor Chen confirmed it was true. Trump had seen the aerial footage of their destruction and insisted on coming, despite Secret Service concerns about the dangerous conditions. On Friday morning, the distinctive sound of Marine One's rotors cut through the humid air. As the presidential helicopter landed in the school parking lot, one of the few clear spaces in town, hundreds of residents gathered despite having lost nearly everything. They came in torn clothes and borrowed shoes, but they came with dignity. Trump emerged from the helicopter and immediately walked into the devastation. No photo ops, no careful staging. He waded through debris and floodwater, stopping to embrace survivors and listen to their stories. When he reached Emma at the ruins of Rosa's Kitchen, she broke down crying. "Mr. President, this was my family's legacy," she sobbed, gesturing at the destruction. Trump took her hands in his and looked directly into her eyes. "Emma, your legacy isn't in these walls. It's in your strength, your family, and your community. And I promise you, we're going to rebuild this place stronger and more beautiful than it ever was." His words carried a conviction that made Emma believe the impossible might actually happen. Standing in the town square surrounded by mountains of debris, Trump addressed the gathered survivors with words that would be remembered long after the cleanup was finished. "Port Haven, I've seen disaster zones around the world, but I've never seen a community with more heart than yours." He announced immediate federal emergency funding, not the usual bureaucratic process, but funds available within 48 hours. He committed military engineers to clear the harbor, promised expedited permits for rebuilding, and most remarkably, pledged to return in 100 days to celebrate the town's rebirth. "But I need something from you," Trump continued, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. "I need you to believe in yourselves the way America believes in you. This storm tried to break you, but you're still standing. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are." Emma felt something shift inside her as she listened. For the first time since the hurricane, she began to see possibility instead of just destruction. Around her, Neighbors who had been overwhelmed with despair started nodding, standing straighter, looking at each other with renewed determination. Trump spent 4 hours in Port Haven, visiting every damaged area, meeting with business owners, and hugging children who had lost their homes. Before leaving, he made a personal commitment to Emma. "Rosa's Kitchen will rise again, and when it does, I want to be your first customer." As Marine One lifted off, the residents didn't watch with the usual sadness of important visitors leaving. They watched with hope, because for the first time since Catalina hit, they believed their future could be brighter than their past. 100 days later, Port Haven gleamed in the morning sunshine like a jewel reset in gold. The town that Hurricane Catalina had tried to erase had been reborn as a model of American resilience and community spirit. New buildings stood taller and stronger, designed to withstand future storms. The harbor bustled with activity as fishing boats returned to rebuild docks. Emma Rodriguez stood in the doorway of the new Rosa's Kitchen, 3 times larger than the original, with a full view of the sparkling Gulf. The restaurant buzzed with activity as neighbors filled every table, celebrating their collective resurrection. The walls displayed photos from before the hurricane, during the destruction, and throughout the rebuilding, a visual testament to their journey. True to his promise, Trump returned exactly 100 days later. As his motorcade drove through the rebuilt streets, residents lined the sidewalks waving American flags and holding signs reading, "Promises kept," and "Stronger than before." The transformation was so complete it seemed impossible that this thriving community had been in ruins just months earlier. "Ladies and gentlemen," Trump announced at the celebration in the new town square, "Port Haven didn't just rebuild. You've shown America what's possible when government works for the people and communities refuse to surrender." The crowd erupted in cheers that could be heard across the water. Emma had the honor of serving Trump the first meal in the new Rosa's Kitchen, her grandmother's famous shrimp and rice, prepared in a kitchen that was modern but retained the heart of the original. "Mr. President," she said as she placed the plate before him, "you gave us more than just aid. You gave us back our belief in tomorrow." As Trump enjoyed his meal, he looked around at the bustling restaurant, the thriving community visible through the windows, and the faces of people who had found their way back from despair. "Emma," he said, "your grandmother would be proud. You didn't just rebuild a restaurant, you rebuilt the heart of a community." Port Haven's story became a beacon of hope for disaster-struck communities nationwide, proving that with leadership, determination, and unwavering belief in the American spirit, any storm could be weathered and any destruction could become the foundation for something even better.